The autumn wind swept the quiet town of Willow Creek, carrying with it the scent of fallen leaves and distant rain. On the far edge of the town, at the end of a cracked road lined with dying trees, stood an old wooden house, forgotten by time, except for the man who lived inside. His name was Arthur Gray, a 78-year-old man with silver hair, deep-set blue eyes, and hands that shook whenever he tried to hold a cup of coffee. To the children in the neighborhood, Arthur was nothing more than the strange old man who lived alone. But to those who had known the town's history, Arthur was a living secret, a man who carried the scars of wars, heartbreaks, and mysteries no one dared ask about. Arthur's days were simple. He fed the stray cat that lived on his porch, brewed strong black coffee, and read old letters he kept in a locked wooden box under his bed. But at night, when the world outside grew quiet, Arthur's memories returned like ghosts. Memories of a war he had fought in Vietnam. Memories of a woman he once loved but lost. Memories of a son he hadn't spoken to in 30 years. One stormy evening, while Arthur sat on his porch listening to the rain, he noticed a car had broken down on the road near his house. From the shadows emerged a young man, maybe in his late 20s, struggling to fix the engine. Arthur hesitated. He hadn't spoken to anyone in weeks, but something inside him told him to help. He grabbed an old lantern and walked slowly toward the stranger. "Need a hand, son?" Arthur's voice cracked like an old record. The young man looked up, rain dripping from his hair. Yeah, I could use one." "Thank you, sir." That night would change everything. Because the young man wasn't just a stranger. He was connected to Arthur's past in ways that would soon unravel secrets buried for decades. The young man followed Arthur back to the porch, where the lantern light cast long shadows across the wet wooden boards. Arthur poured him a cup of coffee, the same bitter brew he drank every night. The boy looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, clothes soaked through, and a restless energy that reminded Arthur of a time long ago. "What's your name, son?" Arthur asked, his voice low but steady. "Ethan." The boy replied, wrapping his hands around the warm mug. "Ethan Carter. I'm just passing through." Arthur froze for a moment. Carter. The name echoed in his mind like a ghost from the past. There had been a Carter once, back in the days of war, when Arthur was a young soldier. He remembered a promise made under fire, a brother in arms who had never come back. Trying to mask his reaction, Arthur nodded slowly. "Well, Ethan, cars don't just quit for no reason on this road. Willow Creek has a way of holding people back." Ethan gave a short laugh. "Yeah, feels like it. Honestly, I'm not even sure where I'm headed. Just anywhere but where I came from." Arthur studied him closely. The boy's eyes carried the same weight Arthur once saw in the mirror, the look of someone running, not just traveling. Before Arthur could ask more, the storm outside grew louder. A flash of lightning lit up the room, and for a brief second, Arthur thought he saw something or someone standing near the trees outside. A tall figure, watching, but when he blinked, the shadow was gone. Ethan noticed Arthur's sudden silence. "You okay, sir?" Arthur forced a smile. "Yeah, just old eyes playing tricks on me." But deep down, Arthur knew it wasn't just a trick. Willow Creek had secrets, dark ones, and maybe this boy hadn't stumbled here by accident. That night, Arthur couldn't sleep. He lay awake in his creaking bed, staring at the ceiling. The name Carter kept circling in his mind. Could Ethan be related to him? Or was fate just pulling another cruel trick on an old man who had already lost too much? As the clock struck midnight, Arthur rose, unlocked the wooden box under his bed, and pulled out an old photograph. In it were 3 young soldiers standing together in Vietnam: Arthur, his best friend Daniel Carter, and another man who never made it home. Arthur's hands shook as he whispered into the darkness, "Daniel, is this your boy?" Morning sunlight spilled through the dusty curtains of Arthur's old house. He hadn't slept a minute, the photograph still lying on his desk. His thoughts circled like restless birds. Was Ethan really connected to Daniel Carter? Or was it just coincidence? Arthur shuffled into the kitchen where Ethan was already awake, sipping coffee. The boy had a map spread out on the table, though Arthur noticed the edges of the map were worn, like it had been folded and unfolded 100 times. "Planning your next escape?" Arthur asked, trying to keep the tone light. Ethan gave a half smile. Something like that. I've been driving for days. Thought I'd find, I don't know, someplace that feels like home. Arthur studied him. The resemblance was faint, but it was there. The sharp jawline, the eyes that carried too much sorrow for a man his age. It reminded Arthur of Daniel on the battlefield, tired but unbroken. You said your name's Carter. Arthur began carefully. Ever hear of a Daniel Carter? Ethan froze, his fingers tightening on the coffee mug. For a long moment, he didn't speak. Then finally,